Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will be quite pleasant, with a high of 81.5 degrees and a comfortable low of 64.4. It sounds like a perfect day to enjoy the outdoors. After the break, we'll be looking into the significant questions surrounding Poland's downing of Russian drones and what those actions could mean for the future of NATO. Then, we'll shift our focus to a topic that impacts many viewers: the potential for drug commercials to disappear from your television screens. What's driving this change? And what would it mean for the pharmaceutical industry and consumers? We'll cover these stories and more right here on Alex's News. Don't go anywhere. We begin this morning with a groundbreaking development out of Eastern Europe, where Poland has found itself directly in the crosshairs of the ongoing conflict. For the first time, a NATO member state has actively engaged and shot down Russian drones that violated its airspace, an act Poland is categorizing as an act of aggression. Joining us now with all the details is our reporter Ethan. Ethan, this sounds incredibly serious. What exactly happened?
Grace, it is indeed a very serious and unprecedented situation. Just yesterday, on September 9th, and into the early hours of this morning, September 10th, Poland's military command confirmed that drone-type objects repeatedly violated Polish airspace. This occurred during a widespread Russian aerial assault on neighboring Ukraine. According to reporting from CNN and NBC News, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk reported at least 19 incursions, with some other sources, including various Gemini flash reports, suggesting that number could be as high as 23. Many of these drones, were told, originated from Belarus, a key Russian ally.
19 to 23 incursions. That's a lot of drone activity. How did Poland respond to these provocations?
Polish and NATO air defense systems were certainly busy, Grace. They actively tracked more than 10 objects, and those posing a direct threat were, quote, neutralized, end quote, or shot down. This marks the first instance a NATO member state has directly engaged and downed Russian military assets over its territory since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, as reported by CNN, NBC News, and various Gemini flash sources. The operation involved Polish F-16 fighter jets, Dutch F-35s, and Italian AWACS surveillance planes, with the Dutch F-35s specifically noted for their contribution to Poland's defensive operations. It seems Poland wasn't droning on, but acted swiftly.
And how is Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk reacting to what he's calling an act of aggression?
Prime Minister Tusk wasted no time, Grace. He immediately condemned the incursion as an act of aggression, a term in international law referring to the use of armed force by a state against another's sovereignty or territorial integrity. According to the New York Post and NBC News, he convened an emergency meeting of his Council of Ministers. Tusk declared that while Poland is not at war, it is closer to conflict than at any time since World War II, facing an, quote, enemy that does not hide its hostile intentions, end quote, as reported by CNN. The Polish Operational Command of the Polish Armed Forces stated that the violation posed, quote, a real threat, end quote, to Polish citizens.
That's a stark warning. What evidence has been collected to back up these claims of a deliberate act?
A significant amount of evidence, Grace. Polish authorities reported finding 7 drones and parts of one unidentified missile spread across hundreds of miles, according to CNN. One drone notably struck a residential building in the village of Wierki, near the Ukrainian and Belarusian borders, causing extensive damage, though thankfully no injuries were reported, as per CNN and NBC News. Another piece was found near a cemetery in Chesniki. Most tellingly, in the eastern Polish village of Czosnoka, Polish police found a damaged drone bearing Cyrillic inscriptions, strongly suggesting a Russian or Belarusian origin, according to various Gemini flash sources. Republican Representative Joe Wilson also identified the drones as Iranian Shahed drones, as reported by the New York Post.
So not just stray drones then. What was the broader impact on civilian life in Poland?
The impact was immediate and widespread, Grace. The incident significantly disrupted civilian life, leading to the temporary closure of airspace over at least 3 Polish airports, including Warsaw's Chopin, Warsaw Modlin, and the key logistical hub of Rzeszów-Jastrzębie, as well as Lublin Airport. This, as the New York Post reported, caused significant delays. Residents in the Polish regions of Podlaskie, Mazowiecki, and Lublin were urged to stay home due to the threat.
And Ethan, I understand Poland invoked Article 4 of the NATO treaty. Can you explain what that entails for our viewers?
Certainly, Grace. For those unfamiliar, Article 4 of the NATO treaty isn't a declaration of war, but rather a formal consultation mechanism. It allows member states to bring any issue of concern, especially related to their territorial integrity, political independence, or security, to the North Atlantic Council, which is NATO's principal political decision-making body. So while it doesn't automatically trigger military action or new policy decisions on the same day, it initiates a high-level discussion among alliance members about how to respond. Prime Minister Tusk has indicated that Poland expects, quote, significantly greater support, end quote, in defending its airspace during these consultations.
That clarifies things. What has been the international reaction so far, particularly from other NATO members?
The international condemnation has been swift and strong, Grace. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte called the violation, quote, absolutely reckless, end quote, not an isolated incident, end quote, affirming NATO's commitment to defend, quote, every inch, end quote, of its territory, according to CNN. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas deemed it, quote, the most serious European airspace violation by Russia since the war began, end quote, suggesting it was intentional and indicative of escalating conflict, as NBC News reported. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky also weighed in, saying at least 8 Shahed drones were aimed toward Poland, calling it an, quote, extremely dangerous precedent, end quote, for Europe. U.S. officials, including former State Department spokesperson Ned Price and Senator Dick Durbin, suggested Russia might be, quote, testing NATO resolve, end quote, according to CNN.
Ethan, thank you for breaking down this very concerning development. We'll continue to follow this story closely.
My pleasure, Grace.
Welcome back, everyone. We have a significant update on national policy for our second story this morning. Yesterday, September 9th, President Donald Trump signed an executive memorandum directing the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, to significantly intensify its efforts to crack down on direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical advertisements. This move, part of the administration's Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy, signals a major shift in how we might see drug marketing. For more, we turn to our reporter Chloe. Chloe, what does this directive entail?
Grace, this memorandum, reported by NPR, CNN Politics, and CBS News, is a potent prescription for change. It tasks the FDA and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, with increasing enforcement of regulations governing direct-to-consumer, or DTC, drug ads. Officials claim past FDA enforcement was lax, with only 1 letter in 2023 and none in 2024.
That's a big jump. What specific actions is the FDA taking?
The FDA is now issuing about 100 cease and desist letters to online pharmacies and thousands of warning letters to the broader pharmaceutical industry. CNN, for instance, cited a Super Bowl ad for weight loss drugs criticized for omitting crucial safety information.
Beyond enforcement, is the administration changing the rules themselves?
Yes, Grace. The executive order directs the FDA to craft new regulations eliminating a 1997 provision. This allowed only a brief overview of side effects in broadcast ads. Prior to 1997, all side effects were required to be listed.
What's the rationale? And what would new ads look like?
HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. argues this 1997 change led to an quote, explosion, end quote, of drug marketing, quote, hooking this country on prescription drugs and fostering, quote, a pill for every ill, end quote, according to CNN and CBS News. New regulations will require far more extensive disclosures, potentially extending TV ads to up to 4 minutes, MedPageToday.com anticipates.
4 minutes for a drug ad? That's a hefty dose of information. Will this oversight extend beyond traditional television?
Absolutely, Grace. The FDA will expand oversight to social media, including influencers who may promote drug products without proper disclosures, as reported by CNN and CBS News. This aims to ensure transparency across all digital channels.
Secretary Kennedy Jr., who assumed his role on February 13, 2025, has long expressed distrust of the industry. Is this order a step towards his past calls for a complete ban?
Yes, Grace. He's previously advocated for a complete ban, MedPageToday.com notes. While not a total ban, the design to mandate, quote, extensive, lengthy disclosures that could stretch ads to, quote, 4 minutes, is seen by FiercePharma.com as creating a regulatory burden effectively acting as a, quote, de facto ban.
What are the financial implications for the industry and media if ads become this long?
Grace, the ripple effect could be substantial. Drug makers spent $5.15 billion on national TV ads in 2024. Overall, pharmaceutical companies spent over $10.1 billion last year, with linear TV capturing 10 to 13% of its ad revenue, according to CNN and ViConsortium.com. Analysts warn stricter FDA guidelines could leave a, quote, gaping hole in, quote, in TV ad revenue. Networks like CBS, ABC, and NBC would, quote, feel the squeeze, potentially forcing mergers, as TheWrap.com reported.
A tough prognosis. How are they looking to adapt?
They are discussing alternative strategies. Pharmaceutical companies expect to reallocate budgets towards platforms with lighter regulatory scrutiny, like connected TV and YouTube. Other strategies include direct-to-healthcare provider outreach and disease awareness campaigns. Media networks may lean into programmatic ad sales and live sports, as noted by ViConsortium.com and TVRev.com.
What about potential legal challenges?
Significant challenges are expected under the First Amendment's protections for commercial speech, Grace. PHRMA argues truthful advertising helps patients make informed decisions, CNN reported. Companies will likely argue 4-minute disclosures are overly burdensome, stifling protected commercial speech, as BloombergLaw.com explores. There's also the precedent of a 2019 Trump administration rule being blocked due to lack of statutory authority. As NPR reminds us, there are inherent, quote, limits to what any administration can do, end quote.
It's clearly a complex issue with many potential side effects, both for public health and for the industry. Thank you for breaking it all down for us, Chloe. We appreciate your reporting.
My pleasure, Grace.
We'll be right back after this short break. Here are some other headlines. International tensions have reached a boiling point after Israel launched an unprecedented airstrike in Doha, Qatar. The attack, codenamed Operation Summit of Fire, targeted a meeting of senior Hamas leadership. While Israel is increasingly optimistic about the results, Hamas insists its top leaders survived. The group did confirm 6 deaths, however, including the son of a senior official and a Qatari security officer. The strike has ignited a diplomatic firestorm, with Qatar calling it state terrorism and suspending its role in ceasefire negotiations. The United States, which has a major military base in Qatar, expressed its disapproval, stating the move does not advance Israel or America's goals. The attack, which Israel says was in response to a recent shooting in Jerusalem, has left the future of any peace deal hanging by a thread. Stateside, a war of words has erupted in the Windy City. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is denouncing President Trump's surge of federal immigration agents into Chicago as a politically motivated, quote, power grab. The deployment, called Operation Midway Blitz, officially targets undocumented immigrants with criminal records. But Governor Pritzker calls it a, quote, 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 kill tactic, meant to normalize federal force in civilian areas and influence future elections. The White House is pushing back, citing Chicago's crime rates and a specific hit-and-run case as justification. With protests already underway and the governor vowing to see the administration in court, It's a developing clash between state and federal power. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is offering up some food for thought on children's health. The Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy, unveiled by a commission chaired by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., aims to tackle chronic illness in youth. The sweeping plan recommends more research into environmental toxins and vaccine injuries, deregulating farm-to-school programs, allowing whole milk back in schools, and launching public awareness campaigns. The proposal has received mixed reviews. While some applaud the focus on nutrition and wellness, critics are raising red flags. Health experts worry that the plan's language on vaccine injury could be a shot in the arm for misinformation, undermining confidence in life-saving immunizations. Down in Florida, officials are having trouble drawing the line on fair representation. Miami-Dade County is at the center of a new federal lawsuit alleging that 7 state House districts and 1 congressional district were unconstitutionally gerrymandered based on race. This is just the latest in a series of legal battles over the state's 2022 political maps. It follows a separate case where the city of Miami spent nearly $3 million taxpayer dollars to defend racially gerrymandered city council maps, which were ultimately thrown out by a judge. And finally, in our nation's capital, a controversial period of federal control is expiring. President Trump's 30-day takeover of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department ends tonight. The president had declared a, quote, crime emergency to seize control of the force. The administration is touting it as a success, pointing to a sharp drop in violent crime and over 2,000 arrests, but critics have labeled the move an authoritarian occupation that created fear and hurt local businesses. While Trump's direct control is ending, the D.C. National Guard has been extended through November, meaning the debate over Capitol control is far from over. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.